What do
Is
you think,
Gary?
Dave? Do you think I'm
Is
a hustler?
No. See, the fun thing is you're quite thoughtful. You're into the personal development. You're doing a degree, or you're at school. You're starting businesses. So you're partly a hustler. Yet in the Gary V type, it's like Gary V wants you to get out there and bleed through your eyeballs, and that's the type of guy he wants to invest in. That's a New York mentality. Yet maybe
Hmm.
you're a Brampton or Torontonian or Canadian hustler.
Do you think the New York and Brampton like just way of thinking or way of executing is different? Like are Brampton hustlers or Toronto hustlers or Canadian hustlers different from US hustlers? Do you think there's a difference in there? Or are all
Definite.
hustlers just one own cult of people just trying to make it?
No, I think if you go and you spend some time in New York, New Yorkers have a big chip on their shoulder. Like they really do.
Yeah.
I do think Torontonians have a mentality that Toronto's the center of the universe. Yet take New York and multiply the Canadian or Torontonian mindset and double it or five times it or 10 times it, because the people in New York tend to have a big chip on their shoulder. They really do. They talk about New York as the best. Yet that's very American. Like they're number one at everything. Yet these days, the number one things are shootings, COVID deaths, uh, idiots. They're leading in areas that isn't necessarily a great thing these days.
Yeah, yeah. I think like what do you think about Gary V, however? You mentioned Gary V. Like you know how he has a very aggressive approach to anything in life. Like, if you're gonna do it, work 20 hours a day, nonstop for like 10 years, 15 years, and just never even look outside the window. Like, what do you think about that message? I just like to
Well,
have your take, like, the boomers take
when I
on the
was in my
Gary V
20s,
message.
working 16, 17 hours a day, it's what I wanted. I wanted to be in finance. I wanted to get a great job. I wanted to make lots of money. And so I did whatever it took, and that's what I did. And am I proud of it now? Well, I am, because there was an earning of some stripes to do that. Did it cause me some real major health issues? Yes, it did. Did it
Oh.
cause me to potentially even commit suicide? Yes, it did when I was 27. So the Gary V approach of kill or be killed, or bleed through your eyeballs, it is a mentality that tends to be in the 20s. It really is. If you want to become a top consultant for Price Waterhouse or Accenture, you're expected to work 70, 90 hours a week.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually talked to people who worked in big box consulting firms like Bain and Company and McKinsey type people, and yeah, they work a lot of hours. So I mean, like you mentioned, with the Gary V approach of just never doing anything other than like just what you want to do and to make it and do only that and just forget everything else. You mentioned that you had some mental health issues along the way and you had some struggles uh, trying to hustle like that in your 20s. What are some of the things that you faced? Because that's very interesting to me as a 20-year-old who is getting into that rhythm of do whatever it takes, want to go get it, feels like you can get it all. I mean,
Well, I
what are
guess
some of the struggles that you went to?
the idea that you can be so balanced when you're in your 20s. No, if you want something, you got to be at the top of the heap. So you put in the long hours, you do the extra works, you take on the extra projects, and you're work, and you're focused on getting results. And if you have a reputation of getting results, people want to do stuff. They're going to give you more stuff, so you become even busier. And so you either going to have a breakthrough or a breakdown. And so I had some breakdowns, whether it's a breakdown being an alcoholic, whether it's a breakdown of being violent, whether it's a breakdown of stress. I would call it, would be these days, it is classified as corporate post-traumatic stress disorder. I was working in a
Mm,
bullying environment. I was bullied. I
wow.
fought the bully. I actually called up the
Wow.
bully and got him moved out. Yet it wasn't a pleasant experience. And I was very lucky that I had a great friendship, a network that supported me, and they did meet him, the bully, and they were so surprised that he was the bully. Yet in the
Wow.
office, he bullied, bullied, bullied. And that's the way that he got promoted probably 3 or 4 times, because in a male dominated toxic environment where masculinity is bullying, that unfortunately, if you go look around the boardrooms of the, the top 500 companies in the world, you can probably pick out the bullies very quickly.
Yeah, I really want to come back to this bullying and mental health topic, but before we move on, right? Do you think Gary Vee's message is something that youngsters or hustlers or people who really want to achieve success should listen to, or is it something that they should? Is there a certain part of it that they should take and apply for themselves? I mean, someone like me, should I listen to Gary Vee, or what part of Gary Vee should I listen to?
Well, again, Gary Vee's strategy is quite fascinating because on the one hand, he is throwing out that go, go, go attitude. Yet then if you listen to him, he's got his compassion, he's got his kindness, he's got his team type of mentality. So it's a little bit of a show. And I believe that you're doing this extreme. If you're in social media, you're doing these extreme things. You're throwing out these carrots, you're being bombastic, you're creating a character. And I guess most of the things on social media these days are caricatures. And so these caricatures of Mr. Ultra Aggressive, Mr. Rambo guy, well, come on. Gary Vee's no Rambo. Like, come on. If you put him up against any of the military guys, put him against Jocko. Jocko would have him down and out in probably about 2.5 seconds, right? So you have real guys who've gone through real experiences in battle, and then you got a bunch of mouthy, yippy New Yorkers that yip, yip, yip. Okay. And so which one do you want to be? You can be your
Yeah,
authentic self. I think Gary's got a great message for some people. Yet if he takes it to the
yeah,
extreme where someone just listens, he'll probably have a lot of people committing suicide.
yeah. I think one thing that makes Gary Vee very memorable and like just just stick out to the hustlers is his vocabulary. The f s this f that. The vulgar tones and all that stuff. I think that's what really attracts people like me as a hustler to him, because it really shows out his hustler side. But as a boomer, what do you think about that? Because I think that's one area that he gets uh, praised for the most and criticized for the most, that I
And that,
see all over, social media.
well, you're asking some really
Yeah, what do
great
you think
questions
about
today,
that?
by
I
the way.
mean,
Fantastic initiative. You got some great
thank you,
questions
thank you.
today. And again, he is a social media character. So he wants to be polarizing. So
Yeah.
using lots of swear words, which again, I've been there and done that. Like I used to be an ice hockey player and I used to be a bond trader and I'm very used to F this, F that. And it was part of the vocabulary and it still is. Go to any trading room and you'll still hear these, usually these pretty geeky guys who are feeling like a master of the universe and they put on they know how to do options pricing strategy so they can be an arrogant asshole to other people. And that's something that I believe corporate society is now changing. I don't believe that you could be that type of person at that type of toxicity in a corporate environment right now. Now, if Gary is doing it because that's a show, yet if you went to his office and you saw a bunch of people running around ranting F this, F that, I think he would actually step up and probably say something to them.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's kind of like the whole. I think one other person that Gary Vee reminds me of when he does that excessive swearing and just goes off with his motivational talk, is actually Steve Jobs, because he was actually one of those bosses that if he was a CEO today, would he survive as being a CEO? You really question that. I mean, I don't know if you've read or heard of Steve Jobs' story. I'm sure you have, right? But he used to really berate people and go off on them if they didn't do something right, and he'd fire people on the spot, or people that he had to do business with. He'd really go off on them. There were stories with him and Kevin O'Leary, him and Steve Wozniak, and many other people where there have been instances of conflict, and it might be due to pressure, but would he survive as a CEO today is my question. I mean, people who talk like that or treat other people like that, it's one of the most important parts of society in this day and age. So
Well,
yeah,
I think you've answered the question, Anish, is no, he would have had to adapt his policy, which he did.
yeah,
His 20 years going, starting Apple and then getting fired from Apple. Basically, when you're moving into a culture where you're building a culture, it's very different than being a startup. And so startup, there's a hell of a lot of stress and people will do and say a lot of things. And it really is you're at war. Yet then when you're in the corporate where you're attracting good people who want to have a good lifestyle, who speak faster or more so than one word sentences that start with F, it's into an environment that, again, frankly, the people John Scully he brought aboard found it to be less than desirable, and so they got rid of him. He had an incredible temper, and some people have given him a lot of kudos. His creativity, and yes, he had some great skills. Yet, people skills weren't necessarily one of his great skills at the time. Though you got to reflect back, the top American CEOs had a very cutthroat, had a very war-like mentality, and that's the Intels of the world, and that's the companies that were so ruthless. Jack Welch, like Hacksaw Jack, chopped the bottom 10%. You could be a great performer. You went to Wharton, you went to Harvard, bottom 10%, you're out. So there was a
yeah. I heard about
mentality
that.
30 years ago that was fine. These days, to attract good people, to have people stay with you, uh, they have to have a different type of environment.
Mm, okay.
And bullying is being talked about more. You have the social media possibilities. So leaders right now are having a challenge with the opportunities that are prevalent in which ways do you manage, given that everyone on your staff has access to all social media.
Ah,
So
so it's a bit of a
conversations can go viral very quickly. So people are
yeah.
minding their P's and Q's, and they're attempting to even not put themselves in situations where they can be even set up. Like if 2, 3, 4 women want to get together and they don't like you, guess what? They can set you up, they can record it, and you could be out very quickly just by a couple of strategic people that decide they're going to go after you. And so in some ways it's gone too far, yet that is part of the overflow from the Me Too generation.
Ah, okay, okay. Yeah,
So
yeah,
if
that's
I was
true.
you right now, actually, I would be very frightened to be activating because there is so much in social media that you've grown up with it. You're aware of it, yet it might frighten you. Yet for me, I wouldn't even know where to start. And if I was attacked, like I have been a little bit, yet
Mhm.
these days, these attacks, these social media attacks can be incredibly brutal. And they are like the rates
Oh
of
yeah.
girl on girl bullying online is horrendous, and young girls are killing themselves because of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's happened in the past as well. And now, well, as everyone knows, it's been a mental health week, I believe, right?
International
International Men's
Men's Day was on the
Day.
19th.
Yeah. Okay,
This
okay. I'm
month,
I'm wrong.
both
Yeah.
you and I've got some growth. That's
Yeah, yeah.
Movember, and
Mm.
Movember is about encouraging men to get their prostate in, uh, examined, because if men get prostate
Okay.
cancer, if they don't catch it early, they can
Mhm.
die. So
Really?
yeah,
If they don't catch prostate cancer early, they can die.
yeah. So
Oh, I didn't. I never.
40 to 60-year-old men should have regular prostate examinations. And that's what
Oh.
Movember was started. I believe it was started in the UK, where for the month of November, men would grow a mustache and there would be fundraisers to encourage men to take their health more seriously. Men is one of our characteristics, don't take our health very seriously until it's too late.
We don't take a lot of things very seriously, and also with the mental health issues as well of men. uh, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, you've been through a lot of life. I'm very young, I haven't been through much. uh, so just give me a bit of your experiences with mental health and your journey along the way, because it's very interesting for a young hustler like me to understand the wisdom from your end as well, because it may help me along the way. So for anyone who needs the advice, what are some what's your journey and what are some tips? You know what I mean? Like just
Well, it might be wisdom, yet it's probably experience. And
yeah, yeah.
it's wisdom if I learn something from it. Yet the idea of going for whichever you want, I am a proponent of that. And you could go, like, you have the ability and opportunity to go anywhere in the world, work in many different fields because you're a learner, you're a hustler, you get things done. If somebody says no, you'll find a way. So you've got many of the characteristics to have a very successful life. Now, what success means, though, the funny thing is it changes. It changes when you're 25 to 35 to 45. And so at 25, probably you want to have the car, you probably want to have the house, you probably want to make the millions. And that's great. And I'm really encouraging you to go do that. When you're 35, you decide maybe you want to have a family, you want to have a relationship. That many of the skills you learn to be the hustler and the success are not necessarily going to be serving you in a relationship where you're going to try to have a respectful conversation and you're going to have the collaboration and you're going to have a child and there's going to be a respectful type of dialogue. So guess what? You've got to change a lot of your winning strategy, because if your priority becomes being a great husband, a great father, a great partner, guess what? A lot of your strategy for being a hustler at 25 ain't going to work. Now, at
Mm,
45, when your kids start growing up, again, your strategy when you were 35 might not work. You've got to adapt. You've got to continue to shift. Now, that's what most men don't get. They think that their winning strategy when they're 20 is going to work when they're 40, is going to work when they're 60. Guess what, guys? You've got to go look for ways to be part of community, contribute to community, be a better communicator, stop making judgments like you would have when you're 20, when you're 40 and you're 60. If you're still jealous, if you're still selfish, guess what? You haven't really evolved too much. And that's where I think men
oh.
have a big problem, is they don't improve their communication skills. They don't take care of themselves in a kind and compassionate way. They're out there partying, and they're out there thinking that they're the God's gift to the planet. And that's where you find some real major mental health issues and also physical health issues start hitting men between the ages of 40 and 60.
Wow, so it's all about like adapting and evolving. So adapting to your current situation and evolving further from that situation to the next level as you grow more and more and hit the age milestones, right? Right.
As your family issues change, as your decisions, what you're focusing on, like at 25 there's certain things you wanted, right? And probably you wanted to get a driver's license. But at 35 you're going to be having your sights on different things, so your strategies have to change, your approaches have to change. Now
Mm.
then, if you want to be a great partner or leader, you've got to start looking at different ways. You can't be stuck in that winning strategy or losing strategy from when you were 15 years old. And so you choose to evolve. Uh, we are going to evolve, whether you like it or not. Some people say age doesn't matter. Well, guess what? That's pretty naive, don't you think? Is that if you're got the same way of thinking when you're 50 as when you're 25, what's been the last 25 years worth?
Oh, wreck, train wreck.
Hopefully it's to
Oh,
change. Hopefully it's to evolve. Hopefully it's to become a more aware human being. So when people say age doesn't matter, I kind of look at them. And in fact, it's the first time I've ever thought that right now. So, because I think age does matter.
what always intrigues me is when I see stories of people who are successful, who have amassed a certain amount of wealth, and they have some form of mental health issue or problem that they're going through. What do you think causes that? Because I'm very confused and I have no clue. I can do all the research in the world, but I don't know what causes someone with a great amount of money, great amount of success, and the achievement of a dream. Like people like what's his name? Jim Carrey. He's a prime example. He was just a huge success. He's Canadian, I believe, as well, from Toronto. And he's a hugely successful comedian. He's done a lot in his life, made a lot of money, gotten a lot of wealth. What do you think was missing for him or people like him that caused him to develop these mental health issues? I don't get it, right?
Again, it is a great thing, I believe, for you to study, to go and do some homework on, because if you're going to be the type of entrepreneur that I think you can be, it means you're going to have 10 or 100 or 1,000 employees. These days, that means you're going to have 10% of those people that will have episodes of some type of mental illness that will knock them out of the workplace. So you actually going and studying it makes some sense, that because you're going to be a leader, you are a leader. So with stress, it's something that we're not taught how and ways to manage stress, and we are going to have stress. If you have $100 million, you might think, oh, you got no worries, you got 100 million. Well, no, the stress thing is that when you got 100 million, you've got 100 million ways to lose the money. And so if people start focusing on losing it, guess what? It causes stress. And then if you got the issues of security, you got the issues of whether you'll keep your status. And so the higher you get, people get stressed out because the farther they can fall. And so that is a big thing that triggers different types of paranoia, different types of bipolar, different types of behavior. So there is definitely a fallacy that if you have money, all your problems will be disappearing. No, in fact, your problems just become different. Like, whether you think it or not, Bill Gates right now, like, he's got young kids, yet are those kids actually have any chance at all to have a normal life? So to think that when he travels, he's got
Ah,
to have his entourage, he's got to have security, he's an incredible kidnapping threat. So there's so many things that people who have money have as additional or different types of risk, different types of stress, that unless they develop a good strategy to deal with stress. Steve Jobs, you thought he was a billionaire many times over. What did he die of? He died of pancreatic cancer. Now,
yeah,
some people would say that that's because of stress. I tend to believe it is. I
could
think the way
be.
that you're so aggressive with other people, it will come around. Karma does have a
Oh, yeah.
fascinating world in understanding about people's illness and people's stress and the way they deal with it. So I was very interested in stress between the ages of 25 and 30 because stress almost killed me. I had insomnia. I couldn't sleep. I thought I was going to lose my job. I thought I wasn't good enough. I had to reach a certain level, and I thought that I could lose everything. And so it was a lot of stress and a lot of insomnia, not sleeping, maybe cold sweats in the middle of the night. So these were things that I experienced in my 20s that I don't wish on anybody, yet I'm so grateful that I went through it, because I can really talk deep level stress, insomnia, suicide with anybody, because I've had similar types of experiences.
Ah. So it's like the main factor is stress. So do you think people like drive themselves down to failure or moments of deeper rut or deeper problems just through their own sort of decision making with the filter of stress? Or is it like, is it just something that was inevitable that was meant to happen to them? Like,
Well, I would remove the word just, because stress can be either your
oh,
best friend or it can be your number one enemy. If you are seeing the world through losing things and fear and everyone out to get you, and you get paranoia and you can't sleep, and you're then taking drugs and you're taking alcohol, no, that's not a just, that's hell. That's hell on earth. And that's why people do kill themselves, is because that hell is so painful, it is so isolating, it is so uh, life ripping. And so it's very brutal. And I empathize with anybody who's going through it or is near anybody going through it, because if you're next to somebody who's going through it, there's very little you can do to help them, because it's their hell and it's in their head and it's the way that they're treating and talking. And then if they get into the whole different types of drugs to deal with it, some of them can send them even worse into worse hells. So that's the challenge, and that's the reality. Anish, is that we're living in a world that a lot of people are living in a parallel universe, and that parallel universe can be extremely painful. And yes, it is mostly in their head, yet then it goes into their muscle memory, and then it goes into their dreams, and then, oh wow, it's really, really tough.
I'm gonna speak for all the hustlers, right? Because a lot of us, we have big dreams, we have ambitions, we have goals, right? And a lot of hustlers, no matter what age, they always want to go get something even bigger than what they have right now, right? So it's like a think bigger sort of thing, which is what I have. I want to get all the big houses, big cars, but you know we tend to create stress for ourselves just by setting those sort of expectations because there's always that little negative thing in the head that just says, what if it doesn't happen, or what if, and there's times when that little thing just takes over. How do you like overcome, or just shove that sort of affirmation that you tell yourself, the negative affirmation, away in moments of stress, right? Or moments of where things feel as if they're not going as planned. How does like a hustler just overcome that
Well,
from your perspective?
you study it, actually. You study it, but then you put yourself in those situations. So when you go and watch the best top performers, when there's stress, they want it. They want the ball. Kobe wanted the ball. Michael Jordan wanted the ball. So the invitation is go and grab that ball, shoot that ball. Guess what? Sometimes you'll hit it and sometimes you won't. Yet why have a life where you're always sitting on the sidelines watching it? No, take your ball and run with it. And so know that you're going to have stress. Yet the guys who are the top achievers will love it. Like they want to be on the stage. And I've seen that from you. I've seen that some other people, when there's a question, you're one of the first people to ask a question. You're one of the first people to be up on stage. That is great. That's the winner's attitude. And so, especially in your 20s, that you really do want to be going for it, because it doesn't mean you're going to knock it out of the park every time. And guess what? Babe Ruth struck out more than anyone else, yet he also hit some amazing home runs. So
Yeah.
get up there, take your swings, do your best. Know that that little voice that's saying, oh, you can't do it, you can say, yeah, watch me. And you can start a whole conversation with that voice. And it can be your friend or your foe. Just like stress, there's good stress, there's bad stress. And I have a feeling that you deal with stress quite well, and you will have the opportunity to help other people find a winning strategy to deal with their stress. The challenge you might have is that it might not be as easy for them as it has been for you.
Ah.
And so you as a leader sometimes have to slow down and be curious and assist them, because if you're going to create a great team, it is going to be often the weakest link that's going to hold you back. The weakest link might be one of your players, or it might be your inability to help that player play at the level that they can play at.
So for people like Kobe, or like rest in peace Kobe, but for people like Kobe or Michael Jordan, or people who you said want the ball, they want to take that last shot, they will, and whether they miss or not, they're going to be the one to take it and be on the spotlight. Uh, there has to be like a level of confidence, correct? But like, what if someone doesn't have the confidence to be that star player, or be that first person to ask a question, or be that first person to volunteer to go on stage? Like, what would you say to that person to sort of hack their confidence, and sort of try to put themselves into that uncomfortable position that they're
Well,
sort of scared of?
it's a great question. You're really asking great questions today, Anish. So thank you so much. And no,
Practice.
seriously fantastic.
Yeah.
Study Mike, study Kobe, because if you go
Okay.
and study them, you'll see that when Mike had Steve Kerr, right?
Yeah.
What did he do? He got the ball. Three people went for him. He threw the ball to Kerr. Kerr sunk it. They won the championship. So,
Mm.
and when they were in practice, they actually got into a fisticuff. So when you're in a team, you want your players to perform. You got to put them under some huge pressure so that they also can perform. Yet that's what made Mike and Kobe so great, is that the players on the team all raised above, because you win as a team, you lose as a team. In entrepreneurship, that's very much you win as a team, you lose as a team. And so both those guys worked hard, were some of the hardest workers, yet they also demanded excellence out of the team and their team players. And so by those players coming in cold, 12 seconds left in the game, balls out to, again, the Lakers had the same situation. 3-point shooter comes in, swish. How many times did they practice that in drilling? How many times did they actually make that happen? That's what people who create a great team, who create great success in business, is they have people on the team that have practiced enough with them that they are able to hit those shots, because they build their confidence and they build their self-esteem. And that's what
Mm.
great leaders will do. And they spend time with people and they find out the ways to motivate and to inspire and to get the best performance. So that's a great challenge for you as you grow, not only your own skills, you start seeing who around you is going to grow into different skills, and you find ways to nurture them so that they become the best at the accounts or the best at delivery or the best at copywriting. And each one on your team can really rise above, and your team basically rises above. And that's what top leaders do and top performers do.
You know what I just got an idea of, Dave, just talking about this whole confidence and putting yourself out of your comfort zone. I actually got an idea, and I would like to discuss the idea with you. All right. So, idea alert. So
Great.
we should create a jingle for that. You know, whenever we come up with an idea, we put up like a little alarm. It goes like ding 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 ding, idea alert, and then we just say the idea. But we'll think about that, right? We'll do something with that. However, this is the idea. It's like a 14-day comfort zone challenge. So for 14 days, every single day, you have to do one thing that takes you out of your comfort zone, and just do a little video, like, just a little video documenting it, and then the after effects of it. For you, day one could be doing 5 push-ups, or doing 5 jumping jacks, or trying to play a sport. Just doing these different things that you wouldn't normally do or normally catch yourself doing, but you just do them for the sake of getting yourself out of your comfort zone. And trying to think of 14 things could also be a challenge. Like it could also be like learning a few dialogues in a language, right? What do you think about the idea? Because I think that's something cool that people could really enjoy, just to see like a little 14-day, what happens in 14 days if you challenge yourself to go out of your comfort zone every single day for 14 days.
I
Yeah.
think it's a great idea, Anish. Any of these ideas that you have and you go and experiment it, and you experiment it with yourself and then with some others, it creates, again, a confidence, a self-esteem. And that's what's really great about these challenges. And there's a lot of challenges out right now. And I've been enjoying them. I just finished a 21-day video challenge. And so every
Mm.
day for the last 21 days, I've been doing a video. And I just haven't been doing one. I've been doing about 3 or 4, but I've edited down 21 and submitted them. And so that was a challenge for me. Last month, it was to do the culture days. So I had like 12 events. And that was like,
Oh.
again, a challenge, right? To have these events on. And a huge challenge for me was, again, they're art related. And so I've never considered myself an artist, yet in the month of September, I'm actually now seeing myself as an artist. And I did some art, and I'm happy with it. And I'm going to actually be even applying for some grants for helping men become better artists. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah, so I think what you're saying is great. I look forward to us talking more about it, yet also applying it. Like if you went and experimented with it, and you found out you could help some people, you can nurture your tribe. These are things that are really great. And I definitely, it's part of what I would like to do for men's mental health. Because when men lose their self-esteem and they lose their self-confidence, they actually really do feel like they're in a cave. And in the past, that would be the end. Like that would be the end of them. So finding ways that they can connect to their creativity, their kindness, their compassion, it's really good.
Do you think like the reason why men like feel as though they're in a cave when they're going through some mental health issues is more to do with them not being able to, or not feeling like they should express themselves because they feel less manly for it? Or is it because maybe they don't have the support systems around them that help them feel open to expressing themselves? What do you think is the main issue around that? Because I really want to understand this whole, because it could even apply for me where I'm closed off from other people as well when I'm going through some form of problems, and that just could be something that's instilled upon me. But I'd like
Well,
to know what you think about that.
the cultures have influences. Like you remember when you're as a little boy and you fall down, people just say to you naturally, "Oh, come on, get up. Don't be a little sucky baby. Come on, you're a man. Get up there." You cry and say, "Oh, big boys don't cry." And so like we've been drilled with these beliefs that men are supposed to be supermen, and
Mm.
we're surrounded by these superheroes. So when you have a failure and you don't have, like, you don't know what to do and you don't know how to communicate, and your dad says that this is the way you're supposed to behave, and they learn from their dad and they learn from their dad, and so we've got these worst practices. You and I often talk about best practices. Well, many of the way that men treat each other are worst practices. They're no longer what's required. We actually, as men, we want to be connected. We want to to be feeling like we're part of a family. But before, our grandparents, our great grandparents, they were just into survival. So they didn't have the time or the luxury to explore their personal growth. And so many of the things that you've done in personal development, people look at you, what are you doing that for? Like, come on, just get out there and make money and take care of a family and have 12 kids. And that's not necessarily the culture we're in right now. So yeah, many people, particularly men, have challenges that there's not necessarily a playbook. Talking to, or even looking back to our ancestors for guidance, we're in a new society. Like, you're not going to have a relationship with a woman like your great grandparents had, your great grandfather
Mm.
and your great grandmother. Your great grandmother is probably very different than the type of woman you're going to be marrying. And
I'm
so
sure.
you've got to develop some different skills, because in the past they were there and they got married and they're going to stay together because there was an obligation, there was a community, there was a support system. Yours is going to be, well, if you don't take care of that lady and she doesn't take care of you, you guys ain't staying around.
Yeah,
How stressful is
absolutely.
that?
That very, very. But that, you know, that reminds me of a story as we're talking about this whole, like, you're a big boy, get up, you're not hurt, be a man, like when we're a kid and it's instilled upon us. It reminds me of a very, like, it's a big story in my life. Like, so basically, that like 4 years ago, I was playing soccer with a few of my friends, right? And one of my friends actually ran into me, and I flipped over him and fell straight on my shoulder, right? And I broke my collarbone right away, snapped immediately. It was like my collarbone was like this in the X-ray, right? And so it was completely messed up. However, I just sat there for a second, right? And at this point, it's not hurting, right? But I think I told one of my buddies, I'm like, I think I broke my collarbone. And then he's like, no, man, you're okay. I said, you know what? You're right. I'm okay. So I got up and I played for a few more minutes, right? And then I sat down and I was like, no, 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 it's really hurting. And I can feel like the bones popped out. I think I gotta go home, right? And at this point, it's hurting a lot. Like, I'm talking so much pain. I've never experienced this much pain in my life, right? And so I'm like holding back the tears because it just hurts so much, right? I was like, I think 15 at the time. And I walked home with my bike and my bag on my shoulder, on my other shoulder, and I was holding my bike walking home. So it took me like around 5 to 10 minutes to get home from where I was. And I got home, I dropped my stuff, I called my mom and I said, Mom, my collarbone is completely broken. We got to go to the hospital. And she panicked, and then I panicked, and then that's when I just burst out, like everything, all the emotions I had, right? But that's like a story where it really shows how hard I was trying to hide the weakness of not, like, crying over the situation, or even expressing any sort of pain, and trying to have that strong mentality where I'm invincible, even a broken bone doesn't phase me. And yeah, I was broken and I was out for like another 7 months after that. So that I mean, that's a pretty prime example of how men may shy away from expressing their emotions in a certain situation, whereas women, on the other hand, could be a little bit more expressive in a similar situation, which is good for them, which may be one particular reason. And I don't know if you agree with me or not, as to why women are better at handling, expressing, and being more emotionally intelligent than men are, right? Is that something you agree with, or is
It's
that
what it's what statistics supports. So
yeah.
it's what my experience has been, is that women being more communal. And again, if you go and study the ancients and the nature of feminine energy, nurturing energy, it most cases. So statistics will support that. So yin and yang, we learn about nurturing feminine energy and action oriented yang energy. So by being a student of this, it teaches a little bit, and face it, we both have yin and yang. We both got feminine qualities and masculine qualities. That's what makes us a whole person. When I say that to some men, they'll want to punch me in the face. What, are you calling me a girl? And then some girls, they might not resonate with that because maybe they're more
Mhm.
yang. And so it really is not one size fits all, yet there's an invitation to go and study your nature, your nurture, and there's probably a percentage 70-30 that comes into play for you, and that evolves because you today ought to be pretty yang. Go get things done, get on with it, go make some things happen, yang energy. Yet when you become a father, you guess what? Some of your yin energy, you might actually want to play with your kid. You might actually want to be part of the upbringing. You may or may not. Different strokes for different folks. Yet that's what creates a balance, or a well balance, is when you can adapt to changes and stay in flow. Yet when you have something that happens and it knocks you out of flow, wouldn't it be nice to actually have the tools to get back into flow? That's what men could use some work on, because traditionally they would do it on their own.
Yeah.
And that's why, as an entrepreneur, we've been working with creating support groups for entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurship can be very lonely, because there's really no one to talk to. You can't really talk to your parents, your partner, because if you're the boss, the buck stops with you. That feeling can be very lonely. And that's again
Yeah.
why coaching's picked up, mentoring's picked up, creating circles, trust circles, where people can talk and they can get some advice. And most of the healing really happens when they speak up. Because when you speak, you make sense, or does it make sense? So it helps with the strategy.
So what you're saying is like when you speak up about the way you feel, you start to understand it in like a different sort of tone or different sort of perspective of just being in your mind, whereas you're actually trying to explain it to someone, and that sort of helps you through expressing yourself, right?
Well, you've been great. You've been great as a speaker on it, but you also have taken it to the next level where you actually go and write things down. You just know, like when you write it down, you release the stress. When you speak it, you
Mm,
release the stress and you get more clarity. So you've got two winning strategies that you use on a regular basis. And then you will go and experiment. That's even a third. So those are really great winning strategies that you do that, again, I can honestly say most men traditionally don't do it. They just stick in their head.
yeah, yeah. And I think also like expressing yourself is could be through the form of expressing your ideas, expressing your goals, expressing your milestones. So it's not just about expressing the negative, but also expressing the positive, right? To give yourself sort of like a balance, or not even a balance, but just to keep that positive energy and the more enlightened energy within your life and within your dialogue, rather than just relying on people to be there when you're going through pain or some form of problem, right? And so I think that's one idea that a lot of people shy away from, is that it's good to talk about your goals and keep hold people accountable and keep yourself accountable with other people in terms of your dialogue and information. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool for entrepreneurs to explore that as well, or even explore the GaryVee method and just go full crazy mode on everything and just punch air, punch walls, and kick down doors, right? I mean, you could be any type. I'm personally not really the GaryVee type where I'm gonna go out and kick down every single door every day for the rest of my life for the next 10 years. But I am going to work a considerable amount of hours, right? My hustler mentality puts me at work. It makes me schedule my day the night before, and it makes me sort of uh, put myself into situations of discomfort where I don't really feel like getting up to do that, but I must to progress forward, right? And I think that's one thing also that people are missing out on. So if you challenge yourself every day, Dave, let's say the 14-day challenge, I would say we could do that for a video in the future. That is a video idea. We can both get it done, and we'll submit it, and I'll make sure that I put it together so that it looks very cool. That's
I think
something that we can talk
this
about.
has been a great episode of the first Hustler and the Boomer. And
Exactly,
you've asked some
exactly.
really great questions today, and really hope that our listeners, our viewers, are able to take away a strategy, an approach, a new view to be able to assist in their journey. And we definitely would welcome questions. If people got questions, they want us to talk about things, they might disagree with something we said. If you got an opinion, you got an experience, please write it down. We definitely were interested. If you write down a question, we're going to look at a way to respond to it, because that's what we're about here with Hustler and Boomer. And we want to give you a view from an almost 60-year-old and a 20-year-old, and that's what the whole podcast is about. So, what would you like to say as we bring it to a wrap today, there, Mr. Hustler? Oh, I guess we may have had some
Okay.
technology issues, which
Oh,
again,
we're having technology issues. Okay,
oh,
okay.
okay, you came
Am I
back.
back? All right, perfect. Hello, I'm back. But
All
yeah,
right.
one thing I like to say, Dave, very good outro. Coming from a boomer, that's a very good way to do it. I think you're one of the best. I think people ought to hire you who are older, who are trying to do this YouTube thing for consultations because that was a very good outro. However, I'd like everyone to smash that like button, absolutely obliterate it. We don't take that nice approach like the boomers do. We want to destroy it down below. Make sure you leave a comment as well and leave a like on the video for the YouTube algorithm. And tune in next week for our next episode. Peace out.
Fantastic. Thank you. Peace out.
Yeah.